Somaiya, Chancellor Somaiya Vidyavihar University, Professor V.N. Rajashekaran Pillai, Vice Chancellor of Somaiya Vidyavihar University, Dr. Anshula Daneth, Dean of Strategy and Industry Partnership and Director of Somaiya Institute for Research and Consultancy, Mr. Nitish Mehta, Co-founder and Director of Green Chemistree Foundation, Mr. Sabneel Nandi, Executive Director of CEO and DCM of Shriram Chemicals, Dr. Debabrata Rotre, Vice President and Chief Product Development and Innovation Officer at DCM Shriram Chemicals. Welcome, guests.
We also want to express our gratitude to Somaiya Vidyavihar University for hosting this event and providing the platform for such meaningful conversations. Now, without further ado, let's begin this enriching journey.
Before we begin, and as per Somaiya tradition, may I please request everyone to rise for the campus prayer.
Thank you so much. To officially kick off this event, I would like to invite Professor V.N. Rajashekaran Pillai, Vice Chancellor of Somaiya Vidyavihar University, to give us a brief introduction to the Somaiya Public Lecture Series. Okay, thank you so much, sir.
Those who do not know me, I am Rajashekaran Pillai, Vice Chancellor of the University, a chemistry professor. First of all, let me, on behalf of the Somaiya Vidyavihar University and on my personal behalf, welcome all the dignitaries for this Somaiya public lecture. This Somaiya public lecture is not just an outreach program of the Somaiya Vidyavihar University. We invite people from all walks of life, those who have contributed to knowledge, those who have contributed to society, those who have contributed to governance, in all spheres. For the last 6 years, we have been doing this very diligently, and let me welcome all the distinguished dignitaries who are in the podium for this lecture. Today's lecture is definitely a little bit different in the sense that we are also welcoming the Prof. John Werner, who is giving the public lecture today on green chemistry and of course sustainable future action for academia and industry as a professor of eminence of this university. He has accepted our invitation. He is a professor of eminence of the university, and therefore it will be his first lecture also to the university students in this behalf, not just public lectures. Welcome, Professor John Werner, and thank you very much for accepting the invitation to be the distinguished professor of eminence. I will not be introducing him properly. Of course, you can just Google and find out, but in addition to that, there will be a separate slot for introducing him. Our Chancellor, Mr. Somaiya, who is supporting all these activities, is here, and this has been. This particular lecture is also very important for the Somaiya institutions altogether, in the sense that it is not just the education institutions and the university which are going to be participants for these activities which are emanating out of this lecture, the green chemistry or green initiatives. Maybe we will be looking at the green agriculture initiative. You all know that our students, our faculty members, our research institutions, they are also working in the area of allied agricultural sciences through the KJ Somaiya Institute of Agricultural Research in Dharwad. So it is very important that, and in addition to that, our own industries, which is supported by the Somaiya Trust, they are also very much interested in the green chemistry and initiatives. And let me welcome on behalf of the university. He is the Chancellor. There is no need of welcoming him, but again thank him for all the initiatives. Mr. Nidesh Mehta, who is the Green Chemistry Foundation Chief. He is a chemical engineer, I am told, and he is running this forum, and so there are several activities which we did together, but this is going to be a formalized activity hereafter. Probably some of the things will be announced by Dr. Ajala Danait and Mr. Mehta later. So, in addition to public lecture, that will also be happening. Let me welcome Mr. Nidesh Mehta to this audience. And we look forward to further collaboration with you. And we have two distinguished guests from Shriram Chemicals and DCM Shriram, Mr. Shabanil Nandi and Dr. Debabrata Rautroy. Of course, there are several industry representatives. In addition to the participants who are sitting here, I am told by Dr. Achaladani that almost 200 people will be attending online. Several industries are there, and we are also thinking about some sort of an industry academia collaboration in the area of green and sustainable chemistry. Of course, I am also a professor of chemistry, but I know that nowadays even people who don't want to identify themselves as chemists, because I know cases in this country where US visas were denied for very distinguished chemists, since they have written as chemists in the thing, they were denied their visa to the US. Of course, I know, I don't want to give the names and all that, we know of them. So chemistry has some sort of, probably earned some sort of a bad reputation because they are doing lot of other untoward things, polluting the environment and all that. But it is very important to say that chemistry is the central science bridging biology and mathematics, and without chemistry we will not be able to survive. The other day we were celebrating the 100 years of chemistry in India, 100 years of chemistry in India, organized by ICT, Institute of Chemical Technology. Professor M.M. Sharma was mentioning about, narrating about the importance of chemistry in all the industries and all, chemical industry, pharmaceutical industry, in all walks of life. So I don't want to make a speech. Let me welcome, of course, Dr. Ajala Danait. She is coordinating this particular public lecture. Let me welcome all the distinguished guests who have accepted our invitation, my colleagues from the university and my dear students for attending this public lecture, and thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Now, we are honored to have with us Mr. Somaiya, the Chancellor of Somaiya Vidyavihar University. Mr. Somaiya's leadership continues to inspire and innovate us. Please join me in welcoming him.
Welcome to all of you. I want to really welcome John Warner. Thank you so much, John, for coming. He has come specially from Boston yesterday. No jet lag, I guess, and he's here to talk about green chemistry with us and a sustainable future. Today we are as a planet addicted to the fossil resources. In his 12 principles of green chemistry, using renewable resources is one of them. He also talks about energy efficiency. He talks also about minimizing waste streams, and there are 9 others. I'm hopefully not on test right now. But Dr. Pillai introduced himself as a chemist. I introduced myself as a chemical engineer. What chemists do in the lab, our job is to do at a larger scale and to try and make it large at an efficient and commercial scale. I do strongly believe that as a planet, we are 85% of our energy resources today come from fossil resources, which we will deplete. It is by design. You extract, you valorize, then you find the next place to extract from. We need to work into a system which is regenerative. That is, you extract, you valorize, and you regenerate, and so you keep doing it again. It becomes circular rather than linear. Our planet gives us a lot of resources. We need to learn those resources so that what we got from the previous generation, we give to our next generation. And therefore, we need to really, what I will say, kick the oil habit that we have. And in trying to kick that oil habit, we'll have to look at it in the materials we use. Materials will also have to be where they come from and also how safe they are. In terms of how safe or toxic they are, not only in their making, but also in their use. So this is a whole mindset that we want to look at. In terms of chemistry, we are an education institution. Chemistry is something that, because I'm a chemical engineer, a lot of my curriculum when I studied engineering, and chemistry was a large part of that engineering curriculum. When I studied the program, I don't think that safety, toxicology, how it would affect the environment, either if you put it in the soil to grow it, or either in its use, was actually taught. We were taught very well to take a process and how to scale it up. I think what John is encouraging us to do in all aspects of the particular field of chemistry, to think about the various points of the chemistry knowledge that we have. John, in a different way, we also think about sustainability in a wider frame. We also think about what is definition of sustainability. We like to think we live in a city of Mumbai, which is 20 million plus, but we want to create an environment at least of peace, because sustaining a particular peace of mind is also necessary. People ask me in Mumbai that you've got a large piece of land. Why are you, and you're allowed to do 4 FSI. 4 FSI is a floor space index, which means if a particular space is there, you can build 4 times its floor space. Whereas we have planned this campus, when we finish all the buildings, to be in the range of 1.5. So they always say, why are you not building? Not overbuilding. I think that would be overbuilding. The idea is also, I always say that, the word I say it in Hindi, I'll translate, कि मुंबई में रहकर मुंबई में कैद नहीं रहना है. So you don't want to be imprisoned in a city even while you're in the city. And so I think it is important also to give a sense of place, a sense of space. And so you also want to sustain a lot of memory. So we, for example, there was a discarded architecture piece from Baroda, which we put together. The students fondly call it a Kachi Haveli, but it is that's where we found it. And so how you create places and spaces where you can also have a sense of slowness, not just a sense of speed. And I think that is also, when you talk about a sustainable future, we need to look at a wider definition of what it means to be a happy future. Happy for the soil, happy for the planet, happy for all that are in there, and happy for the whole cosmos. So at the end of the prayer, we had Shanti said 3 times. The first Shanti is meant for what we call Adi Daivik, peace in the heavens. Second is Adi Bhautik, which is peace on earth. And the third is Adhyatmik, which is peace inside. So 3 times peace in the heavens, on the earth, and inside. So that's what we hope in a sustainable future. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, sir. Now we'd like to take a moment to introduce the Green Chemistry Foundation, which has been a catalyst for the growing movement of green chemistry in industry and academia. I'd like to invite Mr. Nitesh Mehta, co-founder and director of the Green Chemistry Foundation, to speak a little more about their work and mission. So please.
On behalf of everyone from the Green Chemistry Foundation team, warm welcome to all of you. Good afternoon. Everybody who's online, welcome to you as well. So I'll make it very quick, just to quickly introduce Green Chemistry Foundation. We are a non-profit organization, and what we basically do is we are trying to, what does Catalyst do? It reduces the barrier, or it accelerates a process, right? So that's what we do. We're trying to identify barriers across the place in terms of what is coming on the way of implementing green chemistry within all stakeholders, and then try to play the role of a facilitator, try to play the role of a catalyst to see if some of those barriers could be reduced and we could accelerate the pace at which green chemistry is getting implemented in the Indian chemical space, I would say, not only the chemical industry, but entire chemical space. So, and obviously one part of that, or big part of that, is to see how the chemists and chemical engineers that are getting produced and that are walking into the industry, walk away or walk into the industry with, all the astra-shastra that are required, or all the weapons that are required to reduce the environmental footprint of the industry. So that's where we are we started seeing Somaiya as a very strong partner, because in the legacy of Somaiya, right from 3 generations and our close interaction with Samir Bhai, we could see that, inherent drive to be sustainable. And that's where we kind of found a natural partner where we could collaborate and work on a whole bunch of initiatives to see, how we can bring about a change in the curriculum and what other initiatives that we could see. And we are actually seeing that this 6 months of interaction has actually started creating a few initiatives, and one of them is in front of you. 2 of them are in front of you. One, this public lecture, and the industry professionals course, which is going to get unveiled today. So I want to take this opportunity to thank all the senior management of Somaiya Vidyavihar University for trusting us, for considering us as an eligible partner. So thank you so much for that. And it is said that a sun can see the world better if he's sitting on the father's shoulder. So thank you, John, for offering us that shoulder so that we could see, a better picture of how the world could be when it becomes more green and sustainable. And so that's what I'm indirectly communicating to you, all the students and teachers, our expectations from you. And you can count on us as a partner in this journey to make the Indian chemical industry more green and more sustainable. So thank you once again and welcome.
Thank you, sir. Next, we would like to request Dr. Anshula Danait, the Director of CIRAC and Dean of Strategy Industry Partnership, to address the audience.
Welcome to all of you, and most importantly, all the industry colleagues who have participated online. Thank you very much for all of you for joining. As Nitesh rightly said, that we have always been seeing a gap in many areas, and since I spent a long time in the industry, and when I joined Somaiya Vidyavihar University around 18 months back, I was very clear that while we were in the industry, we would always talk about what could we do to make this planet better. But people in the industry get quite busy with their own work, and there's always a difference between what academia should do and what industry should do. Since I joined, I saw a few gaps, and I felt that rather than waiting for somebody else to do something about it, why don't we lead the change? So we started the first change around 15 months back with the VChemie program, because we saw very few women in the chemical industry. I'm very fortunate that the VChemie program is progressing really well. We've trained more than 100 girls and already placed more than 60 girls in the chemical companies across Mumbai and Gujarat. And today I would like to share with you that on the occasion of John's presence here, we would like to launch a new initiative, which is an Industry Academia initiative. And it's not only an Industry Academia initiative, I think for the first time we are also having a non-profit as a partner. So it's actually an industry, academia and a not-for-profit, a partnership between 3 different stakeholders, all of them working towards the same cause. And for this, I would like to invite Vice Chancellor, Professor John Warner, and our industry partner, Mr. Nandi, and I'll talk a little bit more about it later, to come forward to unveil this course. The reason why we wanted to have an industry partner is because there's always a perception that if an academia is launching a course, it will be very theoretical and it will not be very practical. So to all the industry participants who are joining online, I want to reassure you that you're going to get lots of examples of practice which are going to be introduced in this course, and therefore we are very fortunate to have DCM Shriram Chemicals Business, who is a partner in this initiative that we are going to launch. So I would now like everybody to come forward to unveil this course. So as is mentioned on the banner, this initiative is spearheaded by Center for Strategic Industry Partnerships at Somaiya Vidyavihar University in association with Green Chemistry Foundation, and it will be executed by Somaiya Institute for Research and Consultancy, commonly known as CIRAC, with the able support of John Warner and with the industry partnership of DCM Shriram Chemicals. Once again, thank you very much, Sableel. Thank you very much, Deb, for your support to this initiative and for your confidence and trust that we would do a good job with it. And I would now like to invite Sableel to say a few words.
Professor Warner, Mr. Somaiya, Professor Pillai, Dr. Danayat, Mr. Nitesh Mathur, my colleague Deb, and ladies and gentlemen. It's indeed an honor for us at DCM Shriram Chemicals to be here with you all, and especially to Dr. Danayat for reaching out to us and letting us know that something like this is being conceived. And for checking, or in fact, she knew that we would be interested, given that she knows the kind of spaces that we are working on. So thank you for giving us this opportunity, and thank you for having us here today. Firstly, unlike Professor Pillai and Mr. Somaiya, I'm not a chemical engineer, I'm not a chemist, I'm a civil engineer. But I have been practicing chemical engineering, or working in the field of chemical engineering, for close to probably 18 years. So I have forgotten more of civil engineering and probably acquired a few bits of chemical engineering as a practicing manager. And I'll pick up from where Mr. Somaiya left, that yes, indeed, in many aspects of the way we have conducted ourselves over the years, we have probably looked at production and production processes with the silo of pure efficiency. But the time has come wherein we need to widen the horizon. We need to look at, or we need to make sustainability as the core lens with which we view production and production processes. And with sustainability comes safety, it comes, the whole concept of zero harm, and zero harm to people, zero harm to equipment, zero harm to the planet, and probably everything gets covered under the concept of zero harm, which is not my concept. It's something that's widely known, and I'm sure many of you know. And that's where, when we've read about Professor John Warner's work, and which is something that's widely available for everybody to read, and I'm assuming that everyone has got a fair idea. It's something that intuitively appealed to us. So let me take 2 minutes to talk about what DCM Shriram Chemicals, or DCM Shriram as the organization, stands for, just for the benefit of the audience. So we are a 136-year-old group founded by Sir Shriram, and with interest initially in textile. It was, the DCM stands for Delhi Cotton Mills, and we have been a Delhi-based organization all these years. And over the years, the organization has grown. The current set of the chairman is the 4th generation within the family who are controlling it. We've had a very strong interest in academics, like this group. So Lady Shriram College of Commerce, are institutions that were founded by our founder. And they continue to thrive as institutions of eminence in the country, and if I may say, also globally known. In DCM Shriram Chemicals, we are a chemicals-focused organization, or a business. We are the country's 2nd largest caustic soda manufacturer, with the 2 plants, one in Bharuch and the other is in Kota. We make around 1 million tons, and caustic soda, as you know, it's a sodium-based chemical, and per se sodium is considered healthy, salubrious, green, not the harmful effects. I personally have dealt with sodium molecules for a very long time. I was in soda ash, and then I moved to caustic soda. So sodium is something that I have high regard for, and if I may say, a little bit of knowledge as well of sodium. So that's what we deal with, apart from other minerals such as hydrogen and chlorine, and electrolysis is the basic process that we use for us. So for us, the sustainability quest is all about getting uses of these minerals or such that they are, as Mr. Somaiya said, they are circular. No waste comes out of it. The power that we use should be less and less of fossil and more of renewable, and that's the journey that we have been at. I'm reminded of, and none of these are easy, and which is why our focus is, when we in DCM Shriram Chemicals actually have a tagline where we say delivering sustainable solutions. So sustainability is a platform that we would like to also embark upon, and we know that it's going to take some pain. If some of you would have known about this, the German philosopher, his name is Arthur Schopenhauer. He had said that mankind is doomed to vacillate between the extremes of boredom and distress. So when you get very comfortable with something, it causes boredom, whether it's in job, whether it's in in an academic life. So one needs to get challenged, and so today's challenge, if I may say, is in greening, is in making sure that we conduct our businesses which are in a manner that is salubrious to the planet where we live in. So that's the way the pendulum will shift, and we will overcome the challenge that one is facing today, and the pendulum will move back to being boredom, wherein there will be new challenges that will come and we'll go back. So that's the way that we are looking at it. I don't want to, today's gathering here is to listen to Professor Warner, and I don't want, we're all fillers here. His show is what we have all gathered for, and I don't want to be impeding on that time. But let me just end by saying, and I had read this somewhere, when Richard Feynman was asked in a similar gathering that, Dr. Feynman, can you briefly and simply, the play is on the words briefly and simply, can you briefly and simply explain the work that led you to win the Nobel Prize? Dr. Feynman had replied saying that, if my work could be explained briefly and simply, I would have never won the Nobel Prize. But when I read about the 12 principles, I found it simple. So as Professor Warner takes it, we'll find out. I hope it will be simple enough for all of us to understand, and for including a civil engineer to understand the 12 principles of chemistry. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. We'd like to take this moment to show our appreciation to our esteemed guests present here today. I request Sami sir to felicitate Mr. Sabneel Nandi and Dr. Devrata Rothray. I now request our Vice Chancellor, sir, to felicitate Professor John Warner.
Welcome to the university.
I request Vice Chancellor, sir, to felicitate Mr. Nitish Mehta.
It is my pleasure to introduce Professor John Warner, CEO. It is my pleasure to introduce Professor John Warner, CEO and CTO of Technology Greenhouse and pioneer in the field of green chemistry, having co-founded the discipline. He had completed his undergraduate studies at UMass Boston and his PhD at Princeton. His career spans industry, academia, and entrepreneurship. His notable achievements as industrial chemist at Polaroid for nearly 9 years, holding over 360 patents and receiving the prestigious Perkin Medal in the year 2014. As an academic, Professor Warner was a tenured professor of chemistry and plastic engineering at UMass for over a decade and founded the world's first PhD program in green chemistry. He has published more than 120 scientific papers and received accolades, including the Presidential Award for Excellence in Science Monitoring from the NSF in 2004. His innovations have formed the foundation of 9 companies across multiple sectors. In recognition of his work, he received the Lemelson Invention Ambassadorship in 2016 and was named one of 25 visionaries changing the world. In Berlin, the John Warner Center for Startups in Green Chemistry was named in his honor. We'd like to welcome you, sir. Where is sir?
Thank you. Well, thank you very much for this honor. I am so honored to be welcomed to part of the Somaiya community and to be working with green chemistry. And thank you for all your support, and thank everybody here for coming and speaking. I've tried to prepare a presentation that covers a little bit of everything, so I hope this works, how I've put everything together. But I like to begin my talk by making it very clear. I don't claim to have any gifted insight. I don't claim to have the answers to all the problems. I've been doing what I've been doing for over 40 years, and I've come to look at the world in a certain way. When there's a bit of humility and a lot of vulnerability, I will share with you the way I look at the world. Hopefully some of it, makes sense. But I look forward to having conversations with people so that I can learn more as I have this journey that I share with you. But as many speakers have already said today, in our society now, if you say the word chemistry, it's like the scary monster living underneath our bed. People are afraid chemistry's going to come out and bite us. Open up the newspaper, turn on the radio, look on the internet. We hear, this is bad, this is bad, this is scary. If people in society are talking about chemistry, it's usually not for a very good reason. And that's very sad. Because obviously everything in us, all the things that have advanced humanity from a material perspective have come from chemistry. But there are problems. Let's accept that there are in fact molecules that are endocrine disruptors in commerce, that there are technologies that are contributing to climate change, that there are persistent and bioaccumulating materials in our products, and some of our products are carcinogens, and some contribute to birth defects. We keep asking all these questions. Is this toxic? Is this bad? Should we ban this? Should we regulate this? And I feel we're not asking the right question. Let's assume that an inventor doesn't choose to make a toxic material, right? I can't imagine someone inventing a red dye says, oh, I want a red dye, I want it to stick to a fabric, I don't want it to fade in the air, and oh, I'd like it to also be a carcinogen. I don't think people do that. People want safe material. So I think the first question we should be asking is, why would someone invent a hazardous material in the first place? If nobody wants it, why are we doing it? So maybe a deeper question we should be asking is, instead of how do we make molecules, how do we make inventors? All right? And so I'm going to talk a little bit about how I became an inventor, a chemist, a chemical engineer, and talk about the process. Okay, so I actually started life, my doctorate was at Princeton University, and I started life as a medicinal chemist. Okay, and so I published a lot of papers. I was very lucky, and 12 of the papers that I published as a graduate student, I designed this dihydrofolate reductase thymidylate synthase inhibitor that ended up affecting the de novo purine biosynthetic pathway, and it ended up becoming Olympta, sold by the Eli Lilly company. Now, hundreds of people worked on this project. I just played a very small role, but I am the disclosure witness of that one molecule. If you've gone to the Princeton campus in the last 5 or 6 years, you'll find this amazing chemistry building built entirely from that one molecule and the money that's been made from that one molecule. So, as I was about to graduate, someone from the Polaroid Corporation came and had a conversation with me and offered me a job to work at Polaroid. And I have to understand, in the 1980s, in the mid-1980s, Bell Labs had been dissociated and started going away. And Polaroid in the United States was the most wonderful place to work as an organic chemist. And so I went and I worked at Polaroid. But what would a medicinal chemist do at a place like Polaroid? As a medicinal chemist, I'm used to working with bags of water, right? There's cells that are at room temperature, ambient pressure, and all of a sudden I find myself in the chemical industry, high temperature, high pressure, harsh reagents. And I'm saying to myself, but nature, biology, make far more complicated molecules than we humans do. But not only is the structure of the molecules more complicated, but nature does everything at gentler conditions. Everything in biology is at room temperature, ambient pressure, and industry is so harsh. So one thing led to another, and this would take a whole nother hour to explain, but essentially came up with this concept called non-covalent derivatization. I am such a nerd that the license plate of my car is actually NCD for non-covalent derivatization. But essentially what I do is, and this is kind of a theme of all of my work, I don't look at an individual molecule. If we think of what does an individual molecule, that's like putting it between the planet Jupiter and the planet Saturn. Nowhere in our reality does that molecule exist by itself, just like we people don't exist by ourselves. Molecules work together, and they associate. And so non-covalent derivatization is creating complexes of molecules that help and collaborate with each other. And that's why nature can do things at room temperature and ambient pressure. So I created this science called non-covalent derivatization, and I found out that I could all of a sudden look at all the processes at Polaroid and make them lower temperature, higher efficiency, and most important for Polaroid, more profitable. So very quickly, within 3 or 4 years, filed about 50 patents in medical diagnostics, holography, and things like that. Now, in the United States, if you invent a technology and you want to manufacture it, you can't just do it. You have to get permission from the US EPA. And so many of my examples, I had to go, and so Polaroid submits these things. They're called low-volume exemption pre-manufacturing notifications. They're big files of boxes that had to be shipped to Washington, D.C. But the EPA was confused. Remember, I made a new technology. They never heard of non-covalent derivatization. They were like, small particles, are you crazy? Molecular complexes, what? So Polaroid put me on an airplane and sent me to Washington, D.C. to go and speak to the people at the EPA about non-covalent derivatization. So I go to the branch, to the Office of Pollution Prevention and Toxics at the EPA, and I meet this guy named Paul Anastas. I know him. I grew up with him in the same city. I went to the same undergraduate university. In fact, I was playing in a jazz band with his older brother at the time. So I knew him pretty well, and I could say, wait a minute. him, I don't see if you can see it. I'm the one between the guy with the big hair on the piano. Yeah, very young. I used to have to put a fake mustache because they served alcohol and I was too young. But I said to Paul, I said, wait a minute, Polaroid has been manufacturing these steps with all this energy, all these solvents, all these harsh reagents. I've come now with a room temperature, ambient pressure, non-toxic technology. It is better for the environment, it is better for humans, and you're giving me a hard time because it's different. Isn't anything better for human health and the environment going to be different? And if the EPA says, oh, do the same old, don't change things too much because we don't know how to regulate it, isn't that the opposite of what we should be doing? Okay, so I'm at the EPA, I'm having this very intellectual discussion about how to regulate products and things like that. My career is going really well. Okay, at this point I have more patents, I have awards, I have papers. In fact, the magazine, Celebrity Magazine, did a story about this inventor. I'm 27 years old and my head is this big. I am the greatest scientist who ever lived. And disaster happens. I lose my 2-year-old son John to a birth defect. My son John was born with a disease called biliary atresia, where his liver was detached from his intestines and he couldn't metabolize water-insoluble nutrients. And at 2 years old, he died. And I'm lying in bed the night of my son's funeral, and I'm asking myself, I wonder if something I touched in the lab caused this. I wonder if, heaven forbid, something I got an award caused this. I didn't feel like some amazing super chemist that should be on Celebrity Man. There was something missing. All right? At this point, I have already synthesized, at 27 years old, 2,500 brand new molecules. All right? And I realized I've never had a course in toxicology. Never had a course in mechanisms of environmental harm. How could I be such a successful chemist and actually have no idea what makes a molecule hazardous? Turns out, no universities in the world at that time, chemistry materials programs just don't require any demonstration of knowledge regarding molecular mechanisms of harm. We may have a little bit about how do you look up an MSD sheet, how do you wear gloves or label waste, but actually if you're going to invent something new, how do you anticipate whether it's okay? So why do we have these things? This isn't some epic battle of good and evil between industry and environmentalism. For some strange reason, the field of chemistry and material science has evolved. That's not our job. And if it's not our job, whose job is it? And so Paul Anastas and I, we realized the world didn't need a philosophy, the world didn't need a social movement, it needed a mechanistic science. What does a mechanistic science have? It has journals and textbooks and classes and conferences and workshops. And so me, a guy working in industry, and Paul, a guy working in the US EPA, we wrote this book called Green Chemistry Theory and Practice. And there is a whole chapter, what is green chemistry? And then within that chapter there's the definition. Green chemistry is the utilization of a set of principles that reduce or eliminate the use or generation of hazardous substances in the design, manufacture, and application of chemical products. And they say, okay, well, how does it apply to this? How does it apply to this? So we expanded it to 12 principles to connect this to all the different social and philosophical and sustainable product. And I've just been stunned. I've been so honored. This book has been translated now into over 15 different languages. At last count, I've been to over 90 countries, meeting kings and queens and princes and prime ministers and presidents. And I'm just a name on a book. There are hundreds, if not thousands of people, many of them in this room here, that are doing the amazing work of green chemistry. I'm a nice figurehead, and it's very nice, and I'm very flattered, but it's not me. It's all the other people that are leading and doing so many things in green chemistry that's changing the world. All right, and so for green chemistry to succeed, yes, it has to have benefit for health and safety, but if nobody uses the technology, it's not going to change the world. So it also has to have excellent performance. If it doesn't have excellent performance, no one's going to buy it, no one's going to use it, and it has to have the appropriate cost. If only wealthy people can afford it, that's not good. So by definition, green chemistry, the technology that works better than an incumbent technology, costs better than an incumbent technology, and oh, by the way, is better for human health and the environment. Okay? And who's the only person who can do this? The person who understands chemistry, who can invent it. Okay, so people who have been blessed with the skill to understand the relationship between molecular structure and what a molecule does have a moral and ethical responsibility to anticipate these impacts. But there are so many approaches, right? You've got responsible care, safe and sustainable by design, resilient systems thinking, all of these approaches. And what really makes me sad is that today we're very competitive. Someone will say, oh, this is the better approach, or this is the better approach. And I'd argue that that competitiveness is why we have sustainability problems now. If someone reads one of these books and says, this is how I want to dedicate my life, what we need to do is embrace one another and see how we can work together. It shouldn't be this is the right way, this is the wrong way. All of these have merit. What the most important ingredient to a sustainable future? Passion. People should be passionate about what we're doing, and we need to help people pursue their passions. And you'll find that I just really believe people will do the right thing. But we need to put this all together in a way that makes sense. So the way that I do is I look at it and I say, natural resources, we extract molecules and ingredients. And then we synthesize materials and components, and we manufacture products. If we do a very good job, those products will stay in use and reuse for a very long time. But inevitably, some of those products are going to be mechanically recycled back to materials and components. I call that the assemble and disassemble system, because it's not at the molecular level, it's at a systems level. But then the materials and components have to, from time to time, be molecularly reprocessed to molecules and ingredients. Now that is at the molecular level, and I call that the materials metabolism. Then finally, some of these materials, we want them to degrade back to the natural resources through the regeneration system in hopes that we can maintain stable ecosystems. This isn't a circle, it's a pendulum. And the human-built world is going clockwise. And returning back to nature is going anti-clockwise. And at each fractal level of organization of atoms, molecules, and things like that, you see the 5 different systems. And that overlap on the bottom between the human-built world and the natural world, that overlap is an algorithmical assessment of sustainability. All right? But we need humility. Nobody is smart enough to get this right. And here is a statement. Any representation of a system must, by definition, have information loss. Right? The only thing that has all the information is the system itself. So if I draw this, by definition, I have to have information loss because this is just a representation. And what normally happens when we do something like this is we forget very important things. For example, when we manufacture and we recycle things, inevitably there's going to be leakage. And that leakage creates a porosity on the interface between the human-built and the natural world, and we lose some sustainability. When we do synthesis and reprocessing, there's leakage, and we lose more sustainability. When we do extraction as leakage, we lose more sustain. So we need to worry about not just the things we plan to have happen. You know, if I have a recycle bin and I say, if everybody takes this and puts it in the recycle bin, we'll be all set. But we also have to worry about the people who don't put it in the recycle bin. All right? Because we don't usually hear about in corporate plans, oh, every once in a while we'll have an oil spill or plastics in the environment or some explosion that has emitted things or CO2 in the atmosphere. So we have to worry about the leakage as much of the intent. So we need to, essentially, the best way to make leakage go away, the best way to make waste go away, is to redefine it as a feedstock. If we can come up with ways of using every piece of it. If you think about, the old-time farmers that live on a farm came up with an ecosystem where nothing is wasted. Everything is harvested and used for fertilizer. This goes here, this goes here. We're in the chemical industries, we're in the chemical process, we have to find ways to do this. But here's the thing. Drawing arrows and telling people we should do this isn't enough. We need to know how. Right? We have to have the skills. Right? So we need to create technologies that help people change their behavior, and we have to create technologies that are intrinsically in harmony with nature. So if someone puts it in the bin, the recycle bin, well, that's good, we know how to reprocess it. But if they don't, it's not a disaster. It biodegrades into the environment. Now, we want it to go in the bin. Economically and sociologically, we want these systems to be closed. But people aren't perfect, and accidents will happen. So we need both. All of this, therefore, has to be reinvented. The way we reinvented in the first 200 years of chemistry on the planet, this amazing. We've done amazing things. We've cured diseases, we've fed the hungry, we've gone spaceships into space, we've done amazing things. But now, in our new view of sustainability, all this has to be reinvented. But here's the thing. Let's imagine tomorrow morning, everybody in the world said, all we're going to do is sustainability. Everyone bought and used sustainable products. Every retailer said, we will only sell sustainable products. Every manufacturer said, we will only manufacture. By my estimation, we can only do about 10%. 90% hasn't been invented yet. There's some low-hanging fruit coming along. But right now in 2025, I would argue 75 to 80% of the technologies haven't been invented yet. So it's not, and this I don't think people understand. Again, they always want this battle of good and evil. Better performance, better cost, oh, by the way, better for human health and environment. What company wouldn't want that? So the crisis is not a desire. The crisis is an ability. And what is so amazing and somewhat unique on this entire planet is that here at Somaiya University, you have a faculty, you have leadership, and you have a network of people who are changing the world. Can you imagine? You're a student working in a lab. You're pouring beakers and flasks, and you invent the technology that turns a traditional technology into a green technology. And hundreds of thousands of people you will never meet are no longer exposed to some hazardous material because you invented something better. What could be a better way to spend your life? What could be a better way to use your mind to make the world a better place? And right now, you're in a very unique place at Somaiya University that focused on something that is truly important and revolutionary. But again, the biggest barrier, in my opinion, is how do we invent better? Okay, and so I look at the world through the lens of a toolbox, right? The chemical enterprises, we have a toolbox with all these drawers, carbon-forming reactions, oxidations, reductions. If you can draw the molecule on a piece of paper and it doesn't violate some chemical law, you can probably make it. But if you imagine a green chemistry toolbox, with environmentally responsible, non-regulated technologies, I'd already said that's like 90% empty. So the task at hand is, how do we fill this toolbox? How do we get this filled? I go to so many sustainability conferences. When I go to a sustainability conference, inevitably, most people are up there talking about why. They show pictures of the oceans and plastic and talk about climate change, and that's important. And then there's a lot of people talking about what. You know, how do we measure it, the metrics, UN SDGs and things like that. And that's important too. But here's a problem. Talking about why and what describes the problem, but it doesn't solve the problem. The only way we solve this problem is move on to how. And that's the opportunity we have with green chemistry. And I think that's the point. I want to play the violin. You can yell at me and say, John, you will be very happy if you play the violin. I can watch people play the violin. But unless I have a teacher that's going to show me and I practice, I'm not going to be able to play the violin. In the same way, I can talk about why and what for my whole life. But if I don't have a teacher that shows me how, what am I going to do? And so we have all these products in the world. And we have the UN SDGs, which I think is a really good way to look at it. And when someone says to me, oh, John, only 2 or 3 of the UN SDGs relate to chemistry, we have a discussion to make, because I would argue all 17 of these have as a fundamental component to the transition to a sustainable society, has something in chemistry in the middle of that. And so we need to find, and so in the way I look at it, the molecular mechanisms that connect products to the UN SDGs are these principles, all right? Because where do products come from, all right? We take molecules and we make materials. We call that basic research. We turn materials into components. We call that applied research. We turn components into devices. We call that development. And if we do a lot of that, we call that manufacturing. People have been doing this for a long time. What do you worry about? If you're a manufacturer, you worry about performance, you worry about cost, you worry about hey, that was my definition of green chemistry. There's nothing new. The only thing that's new is now the environment is right in the middle. Where did those molecules come from? Where do the molecules go at the end? How do we manufacture it and use it? Again, who is the only person who can change this diagram? The inventor, the person who understands at the molecular level. All right? So the way I look at it is chemistry is growing. And it is. People say, oh, chemistry is a mature science. I think chemistry is just in its infancy. That chemistry still has amazing things to do. And as the field of chemistry grows, what we have is a lot of people saying, well, we should aim for things. Maybe we should do sustainable chemistry, safe chemistry, circular chemistry, clean chemistry, regenerative chemistry. These are all those books that I talked about in front, and all of these are wonderful, and they're important. But the difference is I don't put green chemistry over there, because green chemistry isn't a goal. Green chemistry is a mechanism. So green chemistry aims, it's because these things on the right, they're how we measure, okay? They're measuring sticks, things like that. But what green chemistry is, instead of a way of measuring and describing it, it seeks to change the shape of chemistry so that everything we do just does that. And of course, Einstein said, no problem can be solved at the same level of awareness that created it. This is a passionate need for diversity. We need new eyes, new ideas in the chemical processes to essentially change the way we do things. So we must reinvent how we invent. All right? So, we look at money here, and my estimate is 95% of money that goes into chemistry and material science never makes it to the real world. It's lost in a lab somewhere and doesn't make it to reality. Only 5% or less actually does. And so we put a whole lot of money, and we put a lot of ideas, and we get a few products. I think the mistake people make is to say, oh, well, the solution to this is let's put in more money and let's put in more ideas and we'll make more products. And unfortunately, that's not the way it works. All right? I feel what we need to be doing is somehow getting more things through. We need to reinvent the way we invent, because society deserves a better than 5% success rate. Right? If we're going to change the world and solve sustainability problems, it's going to take us 3 centuries at a 5% success rate. So let's think about what that means. So what I did is I put this graph together. It's the time and resources to invent a product, and it's the amount of knowledge that is created during that process. And I have research is in green and development is in blue. And again, this could be another hour-long thing. I'll just very quickly. There are 3 phases to research, what I call parameterization, integration, and optimization. You see it's bumpy, because you can't plan research. You can't say, next Tuesday at 2:30, I'll invent the solution to this problem. You go in the lab and you bang your head against the wall, you try, and then all of a sudden, eureka, you get an idea. Then you work, and eureka, so it's bumpy. After you've done all the inventions, now you can get into development, and that you can put a Gantt chart and you can figure that through. All right? Here's the thing. We're not doing a very good job at this. It has nothing to do with sustainability. If you look at the productivity in the chemical industry, the material science industry 30 years ago, we were far more productive than we are today. The number of new products coming to the market are very low. Something has happened. What I would argue is that 25 years ago, academia did this and industry did this. And there was a really good handoff. But what's happened over the last 10 or 15 years, we invented this concept of impact factor for journals. Okay, when I was a student, there was no such thing as an impact factor. And we started counting publications. How many publications have you written? When before, you could have a lifetime of work in one publication, and someone else could have 50 publications. The number of publications, but because we've become so metricized on the output of research, we want shorter projects. And so we're not doing as much getting into development. At the same time, industry has started looking at the economics. It used to be led more from the science, but now it's more led from the economic perspective, and R&D starts to look like a cost center. So industry's done that. So at the very moment we need better invention of technologies, we all of a sudden have a big hole. But humans have a way of figuring things out. Enter the whole concept of entrepreneurship. I feel that entrepreneurship is what's going to... And that it's not that everyone should drop everything and be an entrepreneur. We need amazing people in industry. We need amazing people in academia. If that is the passion, and that's what we should be doing. But we need to learn to interface. Academia needs to interface with entrepreneurs. Industry needs to interface with entrepreneurs, because that is now that channel that we've lost because of the way society has evolved. All right? And to do all of this well, there are really 4 drivers. There's leadership and clarity, experience and competency, infrastructure and equipment is necessary at some level, but the most important thing is culture and collaboration. And with the right combination of this, all of a sudden, the speed and efficiency of time and resources can be done, and the amount of knowledge is created can be more improved. But without a conscious effort of being thoughtful of how we invent, we're just flailing around and we're accepting a less than 5% success rate. We got to do better. All right? And so here's the thing. There are infinite molecules. right? There are really infinite things, and there's really an infinite number of products. And so people say, well, John, this is so confusing. There's so many molecules, there's so many, and for the last 200 years, people have really struggled. How do I invent something? It's so hard to look at a molecule. How does a molecule become a product? How does the product interface with that? It's like crossing the land of Mordor from the Lord of the Rings. It's just a really hard. Now, I'm going to tell you the secret. I'm going to give you my biggest secret. Although there are infinite molecules and there's infinite products, there's actually a finite number of mechanisms at the molecular level. Maybe 60, 70. Things stick together, things fall apart. Things are stretchy, things are stiff. There's only a few mechanisms, and so if we stop looking at molecules and products and look at what's happening at the molecular level from a mechanistic perspective, everything changes. So for me, a product is defined by materials properties. Color, flexibility, stuff like that. It's not a molecule, but it's something. Now, a material property is created by a material mechanism. Polymer crystallinity, Young's modulus, Joule-Thomson coefficient. Now, a material mechanism is created from a molecular mechanism, bond rotation, enthalpy of formation. Now we can look at a molecule, say, what are the molecular mechanisms this molecule does? What are the materials mechanisms? What are the properties? Oh, I could make this product. Or if we look at a product and say, oh, I need this product to do this, this, this. Well, what are the materials properties I need? What are the material mechanisms? What are the molecular mechanisms? And if we do this, it increases those odds from 5% to like 70%, all right? And if you want to do sustainability, all you do, ready for it, you want to do sustainability, put it on the list. The reason we don't have sustainability is because inventors haven't put it on the list. But in the same way we can look at stretchiness and flexibility and color, we can look at toxicity, flammability, explosivity. It's just a consequence of mechanisms. All right? And to get from each of these different things, we can either use good old-fashioned intuition or we can use computational tools. All right? But here's the thing. I could look at an Apple product, and I could figure out all the mechanisms of an Apple product and invent something. But what I prefer to do is look at a real apple and ask myself, what did nature over 3.8 billion years, what is the permeability? How does that work at the polymeric level? What is the viscosity? Why does oxygen cross here? Why does water cross here? And if I go and I figure out that, and then I come back and make the human-built world inspired by nature's design, it changes everything. The biggest component of invention is humility. That we humans have been doing chemistry for such a little time, but nature has been doing it for 3.8 billion years. What a textbook. What a great R&D cycle. Okay, so we should, with humility, be looking at nature more often. And we should ask ourselves what a technology does, but also what a technology is. I can have a solar panel, and whoa, wow, we're going to make all this energy, this is sustainable, this is good. But if I'm using toxic materials to make the solar panel, it's nice what the technology does, but I could also worry about what the technology is. All right? And so this is where we need to really embrace nature. We need to be shifting to a bioeconomy. There are organisms in nature, and we make products from nature. A board is a piece of a tree. All right? But we also can make the molecules from nature and put acetyl groups here, do something, and now all of a sudden, are we natural? Are we synthetic? I don't think the world is capable of this conversation yet, that essentially products are a collaboration of natural and synthetic materials. But what does synthesis mean? Okay, right now in our regulatory world, everybody's talking about, oh, we want natural products, we don't want synthetic products. But here's the thing. If I make bread, if I take eggs and flour and water and I put them together and I make noodles, after I cook them, the flour is gone. The water is gone. The eggs and the proteins are gone. Things have hydrolyzed. Things have esterified. Things have cross-linked. Even something as simple as cooking, every person who cooks is a synthetic organic chemist. And what they're eating is not natural. It is a consequence of several chemical reactions. So why our society has decided that doing a chemical reaction somehow is not good, our bodies do millions of chemical reactions every second. So we have to really look at our relationship between chemistry and what we call nature. All right? Because nature does synthetic chemistry. We just got to learn how to do it better. So when I look at the 17 UN SDGs, I think that they're kind of mixed up. And so what I do is I like to separate them. There's health, there's environment, and there's social. And once you put them like that, they start to make a little bit more sense. And again, I would argue that every one of these has a chemistry invention. You want to solve poverty? You're not going to do it just by thinking about it. There's got to be something that's going to help people, a thing that's going to have to be invented that's made out of material stuff. Every one of them. And so we need to, the unmet needs for the future, we have health unmet needs, we have environmental unmet needs, and we have social unmet needs. But we also have uninvented tools. We need the tools. We need information tools, we need materials tools, and we need economic tools. Not one human being on the planet isn't part of this future. This isn't one group of people. Every aspect of human endeavor, social, arts, finance, science, everything, we all have to work together to get this done. And we need a roadmap to start doing it appropriately. So my wife and I, in 2007, we started these two organizations. Amy Cannon runs Beyond Benign, and I run the Technology Greenhouse. And I've just been trying to find a way to do this. And so the Technology Greenhouse, just people always wonder, John, what are you? Who are you? Where are you? So I'm just north of Boston. I have one lab for materials science in Woburn that does injection molding, coatings, and stuff like that. I have another lab that has robotics and AI, and then in Lowell I have small molecule synthesis and polymer synthesis, and then in Andover I do the biological stuff and things like that. And what's really like, I'm the luckiest person in the world, I live there. So every one of these labs is less than 20-minute drive for me, okay? And so my life is about getting groups of people and inventing and showing the world this can be done. That 5% is unacceptable. So with a very small group of people, talking less than 20 people on average a year, and a tiny bit of funding, been able to file over 360 patents. Since 2010, I've licensed 40 technologies to multinationals. I only show the ones that have gone public, that have had a press release. Oh, we worked with John, there's others, and have been able to start a whole bunch of technologies. And this isn't because I'm some genius or something like that. I sincerely believe it's because I do green chemistry. And I'm going to quickly give you some examples. What does this look like in the real world? Okay, and some of you have heard some of these examples, but there's some new examples too. So one is this molecule here is called copper ATSM. It is brick dust. It is insoluble in everything. If you put it in DMSO with some surfactants and put it into laboratory animals, it shows a lot of neurologically positive behavior. But you could never use that in a human because it's the DMSO. So using my science of non-covalent derivatization, I was able to construct something that was orally bioavailable and get it to cross the blood-brain barrier. We started a pharmaceutical company and very quickly Went through phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and we're exiting phase 3 clinical trials, what looks like the most promising ALS drug so far in history. There's still a long way to go, okay? There's still a lot of hurdles. But I would argue why I was so fast, why I was able to do this, is because I did green chemistry. Another example, and this one I know some people like this example. One day I was contemplating insect sclerotization, okay? I actually had a friend, he was a biology professor, and one day I went to his house for dinner, and he's an insect biologist, and he studies how when an insect loses its exoskeleton, it, for a short period of time, white and soft and very vulnerable to the environment. So it has to quickly cross-link and get hard, all right? And so he's been collecting these things all of his life. So in his refrigerator in his kitchen, he had all these jars of ground-up insects. Okay, they were white, they were beige, they were pink, and it's like, ugh. And so I always remembered that thought. And so 10, 12, 15 years later, I'm thinking, people color their hair, but they use really toxic stuff. So this is a tyrosinase oxidative cascade. And so I invented an iron-manganese oxidative couple. And I didn't want to grind up dead bugs. I thought that was nasty. And so instead, there's these beans called velvet beans. Got a bunch of gray hair, put it in, and it worked. Doesn't wash out, doesn't fade, but more importantly, it doesn't paint the hair. It restores the human melanin. So I put it in my hair, boom. My hair goes back to the color it was before I went gray. And before someone asks me, no, I'm not going to spend my life coloring my hair. I'm happy with my gray hair, so no, I don't use it. But I could. All right, my friend with black hair, it goes black. My friend with brown hair, it goes brown. It's the same bottle. And so it restores the human pigment. And so in the same way we have a fingerprint, I realized we have a hairprint. And so I'm doing experiments on myself. When I was inventing this, I had panel hair, a panel hair, a panel. So I had all these, I looked like a crazy person. And I go to a meeting one day and someone goes, John? What are you doing? And I explained it to them, and I didn't realize. They got so excited. They went and they raised $10, $15 million, and they started a company called Hairprint. And for the last 10 years, this has been direct to consumer on the market, a successful product. You know, you quickly, if you call my Hairprint, then call them, they'll probably put in a set of knives or something. But this could, you know, from an idea in my head to selling a commercial product was 22 months. Couldn't have done it without green chemistry. Another example, there are hundreds of thousands of miles of asphalt pavement in the world. The sun and the air oxidize the surface of the asphalt, making it brittle and hard. We repave 10% of all roads every year. All right, and then we put it in a landfill because that brittle and hard asphalt's not very useful. Okay, what a waste. We're using all this new petroleum to pave roads. All right, and so I'm a hockey player from Boston. Okay, so the Boston Bruins is the ice hockey team in Boston. And so in between a hockey game, in between periods, a truck comes out and cleans the surface of the ice. It's called the Zamboni. And I said, could I invent a street Zamboni? A truck just comes down the road, digs up the old asphalt, adds my catalyst, reprocesses it, and paves it. It worked. 18 months after having my idea, we start a company called Collaborative Aggregates. We have a catalyst that we sell called Delta S that goes into the asphalt, and we have an aqueous spray coating for preservative. All right? Could not possibly have done this without the principles of green chemistry. Another example, this is the one that's super exciting to me right now because it's going really interesting. This drawing, you see the birds in the sky and the fish. It's kind of an optical illusion. When do the birds become fish? When do the fish become birds? In nature, there are very few discrete boundaries. Everything is gradual. If you look at electron transfer across a mitochondrial matrix, it's kind of like that. So I said, could I invent a semiconductor that was a hybrid metal inorganic complex, and then have it slowly transition to a chromophore. And then have that chromophore, through self-assembly, slowly turn into an electrolyte. And I started making photovoltaic systems. Turns out it is the highest efficient photovoltaic system in history. It's so good that if we turn off all the lights in this room, one candle in the back, it would still power the device. And so next thing you know, Amazon, the company, finds out, and they essentially invest a lot of money. And we're in manufacturing now in California for essentially an indoor photovoltaic system. It's green chemistry, it's non-toxic, it's recyclable. It doesn't power the device, it constantly charges the battery. And just a couple weeks ago, the consumer and electronics show, this won a big prize for that, and so could not possibly have done this without green chemistry. Another example, you know the glasses you go outside and they turn dark and you go insert and they turn clear? Well, that's called photochromism. And what I did was I played with the methyl ethyl propyl butyl groups so that instead it goes from, instead of color, it goes from hydrophilic to hydrophobic. If you make a super hydrophilic polymer, it's great, water absorbs. But if you want to get that water out, it works against you because it's super hydrophilic. But by putting in this passive switch that goes water absorb, turn the light off, water desorb, changes everything. So this is an oversimplification, but imagine I have an umbrella with my polymer on it. The sun comes up, water absorbs on the underside of the umbrella. Sun goes down, it rains pure water. I've made this so that it works in the millisecond time frame in the shadow of a windmill, capture release. I have LEDs that drive dehumidification systems. It's 1/100th the amount of energy for a typical thermal system. Okay? Could not have done this without using green chemistry. Another example is if you have a biopolymer. A lot of times biopolymers are really good from a sustainability perspective, but don't have the right mechanical properties. If you change it, you put in groups, you cross-link it, and you make it mechanically strong, now it's no longer biodegradable. So in the same chemistry that I use the hair color, interestingly enough, they're able to start making polymers that essentially have 1,000% elongation at break, that are ballistically strong, literally bulletproof type strength, but are still biodegradable. So the technology doesn't create biodegradation, but if a polymer is biodegradable to begin with, and you add this, it doesn't lose the biodegradation while you customize other properties. Okay. And my last example, this is the latest company that I just started this about 2 months ago. I wanted to call this Firefly. But there are so many companies called Firefly. My mom is Italian, and so Italian for Firefly is Luciola. And so I called it Luciola Technologies. And what I was able to do, I've been able to create these UV LEDs, but they're wireless. So I have a wireless UV LED, so no wires, you can just in an inductive field turn it on, turn it off, and then coated it with a catalyst. So that I have a photo catalyst that has an on state and an off state, and it's about 6 millimeter bead. So I can take a flow reactor and have all these 6 millimeter beads in them, and then I have an inductive coil going around the reactor and turn sections on and off with a flip of a switch. And that turns on and off the photochemistry. Now, when you normally do photochemistry, the molecule on the top shadows the molecule under, which shadows the... So your penetration depth is limiting. But because now you have a flow reactor with all these beads that are packed together, the flow is really close, and the walls are reflective, so this increases the photo efficiency by a factor of 100. because it's a turbulent flow system. So I am essentially doing synthesis, where I flow molecules to do traditional photosynthesis, doing degradation, removing PFAS from water and things. And also, the thing that's really exciting to me is new types of photoseparations. So when we do chromatography, we have an inert substrate, we have a fluid going through, and we change the polarity of the fluid. The bioeconomy, in my opinion, has maxed out, not because of what we can make, but what we can purify. We need new tools for purification. This changes everything, because now you're not changing the polarity of the mobile phase, you're changing the polarity of the inert solid support. And so we can do that. So really, I wanted to end with some controversial statements here, okay? We glorify nature. We always say nature is so much better, and I agree. The natural world is amazing. But what I think the biggest difference between nature and how humans behave is, there are no committees in nature. All right? Can you imagine if there was a committee in nature and someone comes up and says, okay, nature committee, I have this idea. I want to do this animal. It's got a long neck. And the committee would, no, will never work. Canceled. But because there was no committee to cancel it, the giraffe got to happen. And I feel innovation now, the way we have evolved as a society, everything is being judged by some panel. And what we do is we want precedents. All right, you're going to get the thing. Why do you think this is going to work? Show me why it's going to work. And if you can convince me that there is no risk, and I'm absolutely certain, yeah, what you're doing, is that really innovative? And so if I had a magic wand, and I could go to any agency that grants money, I would have a certain percentage of it be a lottery, because we've lost the ability to innovate, because everything has to have a committee that says, yeah, that's going to work. Just think about it. If you're a committee and one person says, I have an idea, and everyone in the committee says, yeah, that'll work, that's good. And another person, and they go, oh, that's crazy, that'll never work. Who gets the money? The one everybody nodded their head to. Which was more innovative? The one everybody said would never work. We've lost that in our society, that sense of inventing things that people don't believe in. That's where breakthroughs, that's where amazing things happen. And so I know it's kind of controversial, but that's the natural way of doing things, all right? And so, and then the other thing is, nature isn't just biology, okay? We get so in our silos. Okay, oh, I'm a chemist, I'm a this. Well, chemistry creates biology. Biology creates neuroscience. Neuroscience creates philosophy. Philosophy creates mathematics. Mathematics creates physics. And physics creates chemistry. No one's not on this picture. Everyone in our society is part of this. We got to realize we're all in this together. And this is where I think that continuity has to happen. That's why a campus like here is so cool, because there's a little bit of everything, and everyone's welcome, and all of this stuff. We just need to amplify that to the best way. So my closing thought, what keeps me awake at night, what worries me, we got a long way to go. There's a lot of problems in the world, and who's going to invent it? I hope I'm looking at amazing people that in years to come are going to be changing the world in amazing ways. But we need everyone to be doing this. And so my personal hero, the person who I feel is doing the most in sustainability on the planet, is my wife, Amy Cannon. I'll try not to lose it here. Emotion, thank you. She is tireless and selfless. Nobody knows her name. She's not getting awards and being asked to do things, and she's working so hard with a small group of people. And she has this program called the Green Chemistry Commitment, where she's asking universities to join a group of people to require green chemistry as part of the curriculum. And there are now over 210 people. Actually, it used to be only 3, now it's 10. 10 people working very quietly have got now Hundreds of signers. This is old. There's now about 125 in the U.S., and there's now over 100 global signers. Of course, here is an amazing signatory on this list. But this is where it's going to happen. Industry wants to do it. CEOs of companies have made pledges. We're going to be sustainable. Retailers say we're going to sell sustainable products. But it doesn't happen just because we want it to happen. This isn't an issue of desire. I believe everyone has the desire. The issue is ability. And if you graduate from a university not knowing what are the mechanisms of toxicity, what are the mechanisms of environment, you can't invent them. But if you do have those skills, not only do you have this amazing moral and ethical opportunity to change the world, but you're also consistent with economic principles, and you're going to be more successful and more profitable for the people that you work with. What things offer you both? Very few in this world. So thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak with you. Thank you, Somaiya University, for embracing green chemistry and doing the amazing things you're doing. Thank you, Nitesh Mehta and the Green Chemistry Foundation. But most importantly, thank all of you. I can't wait to see the amazing things that come out of here. Thank you. Yeah, please.
Thanks, John, for a wonderful talk. So my first question is, I have a couple of short questions. One thing is about sustainability, that is the key word. And sustainability, by definition, by dictionary meaning says, like preserve something in the same rate or rhythm.
Yes.
Right? So your title started with accelerating green chemistry. So my question is that when you accelerate and do anything, so there is a conflict with sustainability. So how do you address this in this context?
So, I'll be a little controversial. We in our society, we accept concepts and we give words to concepts. And those words are never good enough. What we think in our heart, what we think in our brain, is so much more than a certain word like sustainable. If you really analyze the word sustainable, it's not a very nice word, actually. If someone says to me, how's your marriage? And I say, oh, it's sustainable. So we've embraced this word, but we've never really thought about what that word really means. And so sustainable to me is the continuity of change. Is by definition in my heart sustainability, because the world constantly changes. We don't want to take a snapshot of some day 5 years ago and say this is the way the world should be forever. So sustainability is a difficult thing, but the problem is whatever we come up with that word sustainable, the Earth's ecosystem are on a negative trajectory that make whatever interpretation sustainable isn't going to happen. The clock is ticking. Not only is there climate issues, there are social issues, justice issues, poverty issues, ecosystem issues, and so we have to come up and invent technologies, not only to offset those changes. I think offsetting those changes are important, but we also have to acknowledge that those changes are here. And we need to invent technologies that address those changes. And we don't have much time, so yes, it's sad that we have to rush. I wish we started 50 years ago, but we do have to rush. Yeah. Yes, exactly. And it's an important point. So I am a full member of the Club of Rome. Club of Rome, we wrote the limits to growth back many decades ago. And yes, we have other economic concepts that are incompatible with sustainability too, yes.
Yeah. So many, like the umbrellas with the coatings and all that. So don't you think it will take some time, some period of time to see what is the impact and what is the kind of influence it produces over time? So
Yes.
can you immediately decide this is green by default?
No. And that is a harsh truism, that we right now humans have a partial view of reality and what it is. And so I can invent something that I think is non-toxic, is safe, and in 5 years someone discover a mechanism we're unaware of that changes that. And that's just, so green chemistry isn't saying let's make everything this way. Green chemistry says let's commit to staying part of the broader community and always be learning what we're learning about the thing. And if we have to change what we're doing, we must constantly change, which is not sustainable. Change is what humans and the ecosystem needs to do. So it is a commitment to changing when it's necessary to change. And the other thing is we can't snap our fingers and change everything tomorrow. Invention is going to take a very long time. And so there are some technologies that are in the world, that are in industry, that unfortunately are far from sustainable. But we haven't invented an alternative yet. So therefore, we must also trust good companies to have the passion to do the right thing, to keep us safe using less sustainable technologies, but be committed to inventing the replacements. And so it's until 100 years from now, maybe it'll be 100 years before we significantly invent. I hope not. I hope it's a lot less than that. But it's not going to be 10. It's going to be some amount of time. So the difficult technologies we have today are going to have to be nurtured by good companies that have good ethics.
Thank you very much. I may have more questions, but I'll give the mic to others. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi.
Hello, Doctor. A wonderful lecture.
Thank you.
I was there at the Green Chemistry, and I mean, as soon as I saw your name, it prompted me to come and
thank you.
join. Thank you. We are into recycling of expired fragrance and flavor molecules.
Yes.
And you spoke very vividly about inventions, and I was wondering, recycling is also gaining some traction, not very glamorous proposition, however, but how do you see any kind of invention or any breakthrough technologies coming, the recycling of chemicals?
Okay, so this is most of my personal research is there. Okay, what I feel is right now we must reinvent how we recycle and completely rethink it. Right now, everything has to be separated, right? This has to go here, this has to go here, this has to go here, this has to go here. Think about biology, okay? It is now, 4:30. We ate lunch today. When we ate lunch, what did we do? We broke proteins into amino acids. We broke carbohydrates into sugars, and we broke fats into fatty acids. So we broke molecules down. But as we're eating, we're growing hair, we're growing skin, we're growing blood cells. Nature doesn't separate the construction and deconstruction of molecules. Nature constructs and deconstructs at the same time in the same place. It uses a molecule like ATP to mitigate the energy so that the energy of deconstruction is actually used in the construction. And so now what do? We go to one factory, say, oh, they're making something here. We go to another factory, say, oh, they're recycling here. The day you go and you can't tell, is this a factory or a recycling plant? Now we're sustainable.
John, that was really fascinating. Yeah.
Oh, hi.
Yeah. Hi. I actually wanted to ask the recycling question, which is a hot topic for us. But the other question I had was, how do you actually train inventors? Do you have a formal program? Or, how do you go about that? Because I think that's a very
Okay.
important part.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to be controversial again. All right. Surprise, surprise. I think babies are born amazing inventors. There's something about our education system that teaches people they can't invent. What we got to do, instead of teaching people to invent, we got to figure out what we're doing to create this inhibition that makes them think they can't. So instead of taking it away and giving it back to them, let's figure out what we're doing to take it away. Because again, and I think it comes back to committees and precedents. People think that what it means to be a good scientist is to know what everybody else did, what all the experts did. And so who am I? I'm nobody, because all the experts already told me, and we teach people that it's all about what other people did. But the most exciting thing in science is what's in every individual. And if they don't feel they're in a world that their ideas count because they didn't read enough journal articles or didn't go to the right university, that's what's robbing people of their ability. I really do feel everyone is amazingly creative, passionate, and inventive. And we instill the way that we educate people, we rob them of that self-confidence to do it. And so to be an inventor, and so what we need to do, if someone needs to unlearn what's holding them back. So the question is, why do you think you can't invent? And figure out what to remove. So it's not adding something, it's removing something, in my opinion, because we need everybody's perspective. And so, yes, there are certain things, and going back to how we teach. So when I give classes on creativity, invention, what I do is if I give two objects, and I ask people, how are these two objects different? It's very, very easy. Oh, this one's round, this one's square, this one's soft, this one's hard. We're very easy saying how things are different. But give people objects and ask them, how are they the same? Very different. Like, this and this. How is this different than this? That's a very easy question. How is this the same as this? It's very, very different. Well, if you look at it, there's a little lip here, so this has a concavity to it. This does. There's a little bit of liquid here. This is holding something. There is just as many ways of describing how two objects are the same as how two objects are different. But the way we train people, we look at everything as being different. The way you invent is to see those patterns of similarity. Patterns of difference do not move you forward. Patterns of how things are the same move you forward. And I think people see it automatically, these patterns, but we rob people of them. Something we do in our education system takes it away. We've got to stop doing that. Yeah.
If I can just ask one more, how do you use AI?
Very important. So AI is going to be extremely important in the future. But I'm uncomfortable with the phrase artificial intelligence. First, we're in a society where artificial is, again, not a very nice word. All right? And intelligence is kind of creepy too, in a way. And so what I like is enhanced intuition. All right? That AI doesn't work without some kernel of intuition. So someone who has intuition, AI will amplify that intuition. But what it'll never do is have someone who has no intuition tell me how to do something, it's going to do it. So we need to recognize that relationship. But right now my fear is because there's so much money in AI, there's a lot of fraud and there's a lot of bad things happening. And the way I like to explain it is when my daughter was 4 years old, I was an amazing magician. I could go to her and make coins come from her ear, make fingers separate. Oh, Daddy, you're such a man. Now she's 12 years old and I'm just an idiot. All right? Now, my skill as a magician didn't change. Her perception changed. And if you go to a very wealthy person with a checkbook, you can dazzle them with how I have this AI machine that's going to turn magic, and they'll write the check. And what's going to happen is I think in a year and a half, there's going to hit a bubble. And things are going to backlash because they're going to see how much hasn't been delivered. We need to have integrity in AI, because right now there isn't, and we need people who understand molecular mechanisms embracing that. And so that, you notice I actually have a lab dedicated to developing AI tools, and how I'm focusing it is on what I call that mechanistic equilibrium. Taking molecular mechanisms, material mechanisms, and material properties, I look at that as an equilibrium, and if that can be the foundation of AI, because each of those jumps, how does a molecule create a molecular mechanism, that AI can do. How does a molecular mechanism create a material mechanism? So now if we have these jumps, this fractal knowledge at the molecular level, we can start being inventive and stuff like that. But again, it's going to take 4 or 5 years to get to it, and I think it's important, and I'm trying to help as much as I can. Yeah. Hi.
Good evening, sir. It's a pleasure to hear you.
Oh, hi.
I'm here, yeah. This is regarding one of in your presentation you mentioned about hair print.
Yes.
Where you said that you are using DMSO as a solvent and all. In an industry, we are also using DMSO, NMP as well as DMF. This is one of the solvents.
Yeah.
And we are finding, the challenge is to replace the solvent with water.
Yes.
And we are finding it very difficult. As you said, it's a very long process of substitution for going to a sustainability. So what options we can try for this NMP, DMF, and though we say that in future these solvents are going to get banned, but do this sustainable approach, your option suggest any solvents which can replace other solvent to this NMP, DMF and DMS?
Yeah. So that's a very important question, and a big part of green chemistry is finding alternatives, and DMF has its issues, of course. There isn't going to be one magic replacement for DMF. You know, DMF is used in many, many different industries for many different purposes, and so for each individual application there may be, but again, because I love collaborations, I think the mistake is to think that it's going to be one solvent that's going to replace it. It's got to be collaborations of solvents. It's got to be other ways of doing things, and it's not going to be one single molecule. And it may actually be like eutectic formulations or incorporating micelles that create phase boundaries within the liquid. We have to go to another higher order of material structure to start replacing these solvents. Just replacing a homogeneous solvent with another homogeneous solvent will get us part of the way, but really in the future, the structure of what a homogeneous solution is at the molecular level has to be far more complex for each individual thing. I'm super excited. I do believe it can be done, but it's not going to be easy.
Yeah, because we try eutectic solvents also, but, but we are not getting that quality of the product, and again that separation, distillations, that many things are there.
Yeah, I don't mean just deep I mean entire, what I call a non-covalent derivative type eutectic. So yes, important problem. Thank you. Yeah.
Good to see you, Professor John, after a long time. Just 2 questions. Are you working anything on genomics? And the second is your thoughts on human on chip. Human on chip.
Okay, so yes and yes. So there was a company called Zymergen. All right, and Zymergen was one of these California, I call it a startup, but they raised $1.5 billion. And they were a synthetic biology company where half of the, 3/4 of the company was doing genomics of different microbes to create whatever molecule you want. So making monomers for polymers, making antioxidants, making pigments. And I do feel that synthetic biology and that has the possibility to create many molecules and many solutions. But through 200 years of chemistry, what we've done is we've tried to create molecular reactions that facilitate the separation of the product at the end. The biomaterials are always messy. And so what people are making a mistake, they're thinking we need new ways of making things through biology. No, we need new ways of separating things from biology. That's, I think, the stumbling block. You can do anything in a lab. I promise you, we can get a publication to make any molecule from biology, but making it at scale cost effectively needs new separation technologies. And as far as pharmaceuticals are concerned, absolutely need to have more genetics on a chip, because it's morally and ethically wrong to do animal testing, especially when unnecessary. So we need to be inventing ways to not do animal testing ever. And the only way we're going to do that is the genetics on the chip and stuff like that. And it's fascinating because it's a tool to invent, but we need to invent it at the same time. So it's really kind of cool, cyclic. But both of those I have projects doing. It's important to me. Yeah. Hi.
Hello, sir.
Oh.
Sir, here.
Oh, hi.
Yeah, good evening, sir. Wonderful lecture. So glad to be here.
Thank you.
I wanted to know your opinion on the beauty companies that are doing green beauty or clean beauty campaigns. So they make claims like chemical-free cosmetics or aluminum-free deodorants, while the deodorants don't have aluminum in them. So what is your opinion on such marketing tactics?
They upset me for several different reasons. This concept of chemical-free. I have sunblock, and it's Burt's Bees, and it's sunblock, and it says on the label, chemical-free. So I'm saying to myself, as I put this, is this an idea I'm putting on me? Is it energy? Is it a thought? And these companies, they know what they're doing, and they're propagating this sense of ignorance. It's very difficult because we don't want chemical-free, we want hazardous chemical-free. Same thing with plastics. Frustrates me, we need to be plastics-free. No, we need to be problematic plastics-free. Bread is a plastic. Okay, and I don't want to lose bread. And so it is this oversimplification. But history, politics are filled with how to control people is to oversimplify incorrectly. And so and the beauty industry is super important, because I think, people say, oh, well, is that important? The beauty industry, in my opinion, is one of the most important industries, because there is people's physical well-being, but there's also people's emotional well-being and their relationship with their self. And if someone looks in the mirror and they say, okay, I put this on me, it makes me feel better, isn't that what life is all about? People feeling better? So if we say that is not worth it, so if someone is putting something on their body to improve their self-image and it's hurting them because it's toxic, that is the worst thing we can possibly do. And so there is a moral and ethical responsibility to almost prioritize that. And because the advertisement is just so misleading, it's a hard job to do. Thank you for that question, and thank you for being a student here. Thank you. Yes, yeah. Hi.
Professor, firstly, I think it was a wonderful lecture.
Thank you.
Let me compliment you on that. In fact, when I came here and when we listened to such lectures on sustainability, it generally paints a very gloomy picture, that the world is coming to an end. But if I may say, your lecture was all about, it was a happy lecture.
Yeah,
we laughed a lot, and we had, it has a positive connotation that things are not that bad.
Yeah.
But having said that, and I refer to that slide where you put it, the academic importance, what the academics need to do in that wavy chart, and then what industry needs to do, and then the industry goes down and academia goes down, entrepreneurship comes in. With reference to that, but generally, do you feel that there is a need to really democratize and accelerate? In fact, I would be contrarian to the earlier question asked, that we really need to accelerate some of this work that we are doing in order to catch up on something that we have not done over the years.
Yes.
What would be your thoughts, and what would be your advice to academia, to industry, and entrepreneurs, so that instead of being boxed into the silos, we do more than what we have been doing thus far in order to accelerate the movement towards adoption of green chemistry and greener products?
Thank you. That is an excellent question, and it's one that frustrates me quite a bit because I feel so incapable of. So the way I'm going to answer it is differently. People think petroleum is some magic molecule. We say, wow, it's inexpensive. Plastics are cheap. They're inexpensive. Look at everything in this building. Everything has something to do with the petroleum industry in it, right? There is nothing magical about petroleum. The only thing that is magical about petroleum is over the last 80 years, it has received $200 trillion of government subsidies. All right? If you took cellulose and you gave it 80 years and $200 trillion of research, everything here would be made out of cellulose. It would be made out of lignin. It would be made out of pea protein, whatever. It's not the molecules. It's the financing. And what's happened is somewhere about 30, 40 years ago, society did a flip. It used to be the people making products, labor in the delivery of products was valued more than anything. Then at some point, we flipped, and it's the investment. And we focused on, instead of the delivery of the material, it is the investment. And Wall Street and investment became the focal point, and the labor and the stuff became a tool for investment. And so I believe we have the ability. We have shown it with petroleum. So it's not can we do it, it's will we do it. All right, because all we need to, if we could do it once with petroleum, we could do it again. But to me, the thing that I am most powerless to have any impact with is the investment community and how we invest. Because I feel right now, especially Silicon Valley in California, the investment model, it's not an accident that people fake it till you make it. It is a rule. To receive investment, you must fake it. And if you make it, good. If not, and all that investment capital, that's why there's 95% loss, is because of the way we make decisions on how to invest. If we could change the way we make those decisions and how we invest and go from 5% to 50% success, the world would change like that. But unfortunately, it's not the chemists and the engineers that can do that, because, you know, an NMR costs a lot of money. I can't put one in my basement. And so that's the relationship. So absolutely, that's the most important. And that's where, again, I say everyone's in this together. And if I look at history, society has changed. People and what they want has changed. Education has changed. Business has changed. Everything has changed except for the way we invest. The way we invest is still the same. We're using the same Excel spreadsheet. And sustainability doesn't have its cell yet on that spreadsheet. Yeah.
There's one question from an online participant, Mr. Costa from ScienceCom, formerly known as Solvay. His question is, what is Professor Warner's view on the concept of circular chemistry and its principles proposed by Chris Slutweg?
I think, like many of those other examples, I think that's a great identity of state. It's an important way of looking at what we want. We want things to be circular. We want things to be, UN SDGs. We want things. So I think it's very relevant for people who say, okay, this is the target. And like I said, it's important. It's really important. So it's very important target. And so if some people want to do biomimicry, they should do biomimicry. If they want to do circular chemistry, they should do all those things. Whatever anyone's passionate to do, they should do. Green chemistry is the mechanism to do it. All right, and so someone tomorrow will come up with something else. They say, oh, we should do the other, and that's the way humans evolve. So I tip my hat to that, and I think it's another excellent way, and the world needs many, many ways. I would never want to say this one's superior, this one's inferior, and that always makes me sad when someone publishes, and instead of saying, hey, I'm building on other things, what do? They say, what people have done before are wrong, and I alone know how to do it right. Oh my goodness, that's why we have an unsustainable society. So as a piece of the puzzle, I think it's really important. It replaces nothing, it adds, just like everything else. It's very good.
It's like adding up to the toolbox, the green toolbox.
Yeah, it's a part of the toolbox, and society needs all of these things. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Hi.
You and I are running behind turning a process into sustainable. Till then, industry have already made some other process which is harmful to nature. So what are we running for? It is an industry, us, we have to come together and then think. So where do you think we all can come together, and policy makers? UN is, I guess, they have completed 100 years, but there's no sustainability as such seen.
Well, good, thank you for that. I think that's why things like this, the best way for industry and academia to get together is just that, get together. You know, I have found that you cannot engineer collaborations. You can't say you, work with you, and expect that to be successful. But if two people want to work with each other, they will find a way. But you need to give them the opportunity to discover one another. So what's most important is, especially a place like the community here, if people from industry and students and people from other, they're having social things and they're talking to each other, and people are talking, oh, I like this music, oh, I like this, and oh, I do this for work, and oh, I'm trying to do this. And all of a sudden we realize that each other is human. We all have the same human passions and the human desires. Then this fighting about, oh, industry's bad or environmentalists are crazy. Once we realize we're all the same, we all want the same. I believe if we could read each other's mind, very few people don't see the future in the same way. But it's the words we use. It's our history and how we've been programmed because of our past experiences, that what's in our heart and what comes out our mouth is just not the same. And so then we start fighting because not what someone's in their heart, but what's coming out of their mouth. And we got to realize when it comes to sustainability, no one even knows what that means. All right, and so how can we argue something where everyone in this room has a different definition? That's why green chemistry, there is a book, there is a chapter, there is a definition. That's kind of easy, which unfortunately there isn't the same thing for like sustainability. Several different people have come up with different things. Okay, and so yes, I think that people want to work together, but again, all these fighting and stuff like that, once you start talking to each other and realize everyone cares about the same things, it's getting together, making the magic happen. Yeah. Okay. Well, good. All right, well, thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate the time to talk to you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much, Professor Warner, for that truly insightful and inspiring lecture. It's clear that we have so much to learn and implement in our own lives and industries. Thank you to everyone who participated in the Q&A session. As we draw this session to a close, I would like to invite Dr. Nitin Desai, Dean of Faculty and Science, to deliver the vote of thanks for today's event.
Good evening, everybody. Respected Professor John Warner, esteemed faculty members, distinguished guests, industry professionals, students, and my dear colleagues.
It is a great honor for me to deliver the vote of thanks for this inspiring occasion. Today we have the privilege of hearing Professor John Warner, a visionary in green chemistry, who has not only pioneered the field but continued to drive meaningful change through his innovations. His talk on accelerating green chemistry innovations for sustainable future, a call to action for academia and industry, has been both thought-provoking and motivating. He has challenged us to rethink our role in shaping a more sustainable world and has reminded us that true innovations emerge when academia and industry collaborate with purpose. On behalf of Somaiya University, I extend my deepest gratitude to Professor John Warner for sharing his invaluable insights. Your words have sparked a renewed commitment to integrate green chemistry principles into research, education, and industrial practices. We are deeply grateful to our leadership of Somaiya Vidyavihar University for their unwavering support. Special thanks to our Chancellor Sir, Sri Somaiya Ji, for his vision in fostering a culture of intellectual engagement through initiatives like this public lecture series. I also thank to our Vice Chancellor Sir, Professor Rajshekhar Pillai, for his constant support and motivation, and your commitment to the academic excellence continues to elevate our institution. I also extend my appreciation to our industry partners, researchers, and students whose keen participation has made this lecture so impactful. Let us not today discussion remain, but words turn into action, embracing green chemistry as a driving force for sustainable progress. Thank you once again, Professor Warner, and thank you all for being part of this important conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for those kind words.
We hope this session has sparked new ideas and a renewed commitment to green chemistry in all of us. We look forward to future collaborations and discussions. Have a wonderful evening ahead. And once again, thank you.